I didn't realize I wasn't alone in that hotel room until it was too late. I had been traveling for work, booking a room at a budget hotel in a small town that I had never visited before. It wasn't anything special, just a cheap place to rest after a long day. The front desk clerk was polite, but something about the way she handed me the key felt off. Still, I didn't think much of it. It was late, I was tired, and I needed sleep. The room itself was cramped but clean, with a single bed against the wall, a dresser, and an old-fashioned wooden chair tucked in the corner. Nothing too unusual except for the odd creaking sound coming from the ceiling. But that was probably just the pipes. The town was old and the building looked like it had been standing for decades. I unpacked my things, threw myself onto the bed, and turned off the lights. Almost immediately, I heard it. A soft tapping, like fingernails drumming lightly on the wood. At first, I thought it was just my imagination tiredness playing tricks on me. But then it happened again, this time a little louder. I sat up, straining my ears, trying to pinpoint the sound. It seemed to come from the corner of the room, the chair. I laughed nervously to myself, getting up to investigate. Nothing. Just the chair, facing the wall like it had been placed there intentionally. I shook it off and went back to bed, but the tapping continued. I pulled the covers over my head, hoping it would stop. It didn't. Over the next few nights, the noises persisted, growing in intensity. The tapping started to sound more like scratching, as if something or someone was trying to get my attention. The worst part? I started hearing it when I was awake too. I'd be watching TV, reading a book, or getting ready to leave for dinner, and I'd catch a glimpse of the chair in the corner out of the corner of my eye. For a split second, it would be as if the chair was slightly turned, like someone had just sat there. I tried to ignore it, but my mind kept racing. I had stayed in a lot of hotels before, and I had never felt this way. I didn't want to sound crazy, but I couldn't help but feel like there was something wrong. The hotel was quiet, too quiet, but it was that eerie kind of silence, where every little sound felt amplified. On the third night, I was sitting at the desk, typing an email, when I heard it, a soft breath, not my own. I froze. It wasn't the wind outside. It wasn't the old building creaking. It was right next to me, in the room. The breath was slow, deliberate, like someone was holding it in, waiting for me to notice. I spun around, my heart pounding. The room was still, empty, the chair still facing the wall. Get a grip, I whispered to myself. You're just tired. But the silence was suffocating now. It wasn't normal silence. It was the kind of silence that made every little noise feel magnified. The next morning, I decided to bring it up with the front desk clerk. I didn't want to sound paranoid, but I needed to know if someone else had stayed in that room recently. I casually asked her about it. Her face shifted slightly, like she was trying to mask something. You're the only one in that room, sir, she said, almost too quickly. I left it at that, but something about her response lingered in my mind, scratching at the back of my thoughts. Later that evening, after dinner, I returned to my room to find the door slightly ajar. I hadn't left it that way. My stomach dropped. I pushed the door open, half expecting to find someone inside. There was no one, but the chair, it was facing the bed now, as if someone had deliberately moved it. I stood there for a moment, paralyzed by the sudden fear that gripped me. That was it. I had to leave. I wasn't going to stick around for whatever this was. But as I turned to grab my bag, I heard it again. The sound of breathing, slow and steady, coming from the chair. But this time it wasn't from behind me. It was coming from in front of me. The chair was now facing me. I couldn't breathe. The world around me seemed to shrink, the air thickening with dread. I turned to run, but I couldn't. I was frozen, locked in place by some unseen force. The door. The door was still ajar, but no matter how hard I tried, my feet wouldn't move. And then I heard it again. A whisper, barely audible, but unmistakable. Leave, before it's too late. I bolted. I didn't look back, I just ran. Down the stairs, out the door, and into the parking lot. My heart was racing, my skin crawling with the cold bite of terror. I didn't care if I looked insane, I just had to get out of there. I drove for hours, not stopping until I reached a different town where I found another hotel. I couldn't sleep that night, though. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that chair sitting there waiting for me. To this day, I still don't know what was in that room. I don't know if it was a person, a ghost, or something else entirely. But I'll never forget the feeling of being watched. The sound of those breaths, and the way that chair always seemed to turn toward me, even when I wasn't looking. The hotel? I called them a week later to check if anyone had stayed in that room after me. They told me it was vacant, but somehow I knew better. I wasn't the only one there.